Things are busier than ever in the fantasy world. Got a lot of names available on the waiver wire that could interest you. So I'm going to get right into it, starting with hitters, tell you who are the top pickups for this week and why. Now, the first name that's going to interest a lot of people, if he is still available and wasn't stashed, is Josh Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays. Remember, he made exactly one appearance before getting hurt. So we saw him last on March 28th. And then now he has returned and didn't take long to make a splash. His very first game back on May 15th went 3 for 5 with a home run. So with his past success, remember he was really kind of a fantasy revelation, a breakout player in 2023. I think people will automatically assume, yeah, Lowe is back and healthy. He was leading off of the Rays, which is really good. And he's got that power, he's got that speed, a little bit of everything. This is an auto add and auto start, right? So as always, I'm going to give you both sides. I'm going to give you the reality of the situation, right? It's not always going to be flowers and sunshine. So yes, Josh Lowe is a talented player. He has power and speed and all that. But we have exactly one season of success. And remember, last year was filled not just with injuries, but before he got hurt, he was really struggling. Now, it's easy to just forget that and go back to his one good season. He hit 292 with 20 homers and 32 steals. So, like, we know it's up there. We know the ceiling. We know that he has a potential to help across basically every category, especially if he's leading off for the Rays. But we've got to keep our expectations real. So absolutely worth an ad for sure. Let's see how this plays out. And if you do want to get him, you're probably going to have to get him now based on how he played on Thursday night. All right, speaking of comebacks, yep, we were waiting for this. Jake Berger is not only finally back, but finally looking like Jake Berger. Now, I say that, but we kind of knew all along this is what he is. He's a slugger, he's a streaky player. Just so happened he picked the very beginning of the season and his first time with a new team to have his worst month. At least I hope that was his worst month because it couldn't get much worse. But look, ever since getting sent down, he got the message. Berger hit 391, his time down in AAA, forced the issue, and ever since getting called back now, a 4-game hit streak. And not just a single here, single there, like the first couple of games, finally had his first home run since getting called back up, and he's got a couple of RBIs now. So are we going to get the good Burger? I'm just going to go ahead and say yes, I think so. I hope so. Remember, this is a player I was really high on the preseason. Didn't give up on him. Not going to do it now. And thankfully, the Rangers as a team are finally doing something on offense despite the Seager injury again and despite some inconsistency from some other players and so forth. But look, for Burger's part, we know he's got the power. This guy has 63 home runs over the last 2 seasons combined. He was able to hit with the White Sox and the Marlins. He should definitely be able to hit with the Rangers. And for that reason, I'm going to tell you to buy into another Ranger who is actually still available in about half of all fantasy leagues. It's the third baseman, Josh Young. Now, for Young, talent has never been the question, right? This guy has legit power. And again, the whole situation of the Rangers, again, this affected everybody. So I'm going to kind of give some of these players a pass. But with him, again, just injuries constantly and wrist injuries would could definitely affect the swing of a power hitter like Young. But he's finally getting into a groove over the last 2 weeks, 4 homers and 9 RBIs. Just the past week alone, he was hitting 375. Now, an offer on Thursday, is kind of killing that streak, but still, he can totally bounce back. If this offense does continue to roll, Josh Young will be a big part of it because he's going to hit in the heart of that order. Now, no team is rolling on offense like the Twins. I mean, this is what Twins fans were waiting for. Finally, some sign of life. Maybe Royce Lewis coming back has helped things. Byron Buxton, particularly getting hurt, finally. No, that's not going to help, but still, there are some parts here that you should be interested in that are freely available. Trevor Larnach is out there in a lot of leagues, but so is Brooks Lee, who, interestingly enough, was batting cleanup. Now, even though Lee is a middle infielder, well, he's a guy who's definitely got some pop. I mean, this was a top 10 draft pick a couple years ago, one of their top prospects. He's had some experience over the last couple of seasons, but not really consistently until the start of this year. And now he's healthy as well. He's had some injuries too. He is going to finally, I think, show the potential that he's always had. Lee can hit for power, but he also is someone who will not sell out. I love seeing a low strikeout rate. The batting average, I think, is going to continue to come around. He's not just purely a slugger. And, I do like the fact that Lee qualifies at second base, third base, and shortstop in a lot of leagues. And he's a switch hitter, so I'm not worried about him being stuck in a platoon. Look, they still have plenty of injuries in Minnesota. There's still a need for a guy like him. And let's face it, Lee is someone they want to be in that lineup every day because he's got the talent to be one of their best hitters. So the season long numbers don't look great for Brooks Lee, but starting to heat up over the past week. He got a pair of home runs. And again, this whole offense is finally waking up. Brooks Lee is not getting, I think, enough attention in fantasy leagues. It's probably going to be a little bit of a deeper league where you need somebody to fill in a spot, middle infield or corner infield, but don't be one to overlook him. And the same goes for another former top prospect in Toronto. Addison Barger is now manning third base on a regular basis for the Blue Jays, and he's finally showing off his power. Over the past week, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, and 5 runs scored. So on the season, still sporting just a very low 231 batting average. But again, let's look what has he done lately. He's starting to pick it up. He's figuring it out. Finally getting that consistent playing time. Sometimes that's all it takes for a young player. He'd been kind of up and down, back and forth last year between the big club and the minors. And now finally he's settling in and hopefully staying at the hot corner. He's not quite at the top of that lineup, but hitting 6th behind some pretty good players there in Toronto. So he'll have RBI opportunities. And one thing with Barger, he's really kind of changed in several ways since when he was an up and coming prospect. He's filled out a lot, right? Grown into his frame and growing into some more power. But also, there's been a lot made about how he's adjusted his stance. He's swinging, I guess, a little more openly or freely. It's hard to explain, but I heard him say something about that. He's just more relaxed now, letting it go. He's not trying to be so stiff and so tight at the box. He's letting it rip, and it's working. And then there's so many rookies that have been getting their first taste of the majors lately. I can't go through all of them. I do always talk about these players on Beat the Breakout, usually before they get called up. So let me just kind of throw this out there. Moises Ballesteros of the Cubs has seeing time at both DH and he is catcher eligible, which is great. Hasn't done much yet, but it's only been a couple of days, so let's keep a close eye on him. This guy could potentially be a monster as a rookie. Dalton Rushing of the Dodgers, also a catcher who happens to be eligible at outfield as well. He actually was behind the plate for his debut and actually managed to get a base hit. Rushing, I worry, kind of like with Jordan Lawler, about whether there's actually going to be enough at-bats to go around for him because Dodgers aren't exactly a needy team, and he's definitely not going to supplant Will Smith at catcher, so just worry that he's not going to get you enough ABs to be a staple in your fantasy lineup. But if you can afford it, you can definitely stash him and see what happens. And then Zebby Matthew of those Twins actually is just getting recalled, is going to make his first start. I'm going to be patient here. I'm not going to tell you to go out and add him because I really want to see how he does. He was not good in his first taste of the majors last year, and he really wasn't that great early this season in the minors even. But out of necessity, the Twins are going to give him another shot. Let's see what he does. Look, I got burned by David Festa of the Twins earlier this season, and Zebby is a guy I'm not even quite as high on as Festa, so watch, but you don't have to add. All right, now that we're on to pitchers, let's talk about someone who is definitely not new to the game. Yu Darvish might actually make his 2025 debut before the month is even over. So word is already getting out. He's finally made a rehab start, and it's not going to be a very long rehab, apparently. So we might see him in a week or two. I'm not sure exactly the time frame. They're not going to tell us ahead of time. But look, if you want to stash Yu Darvish, then you're probably going to have to do it really soon. Do we still want to stash Yu Darvish is the question. I think so. Now, obviously, he's not the same pitcher from a couple of years ago from his prime. I mean, that's a given, not just because of his age, but also the fact that he has missed so much time lately. Last year, missed not just due to injury, but remember there's a long stretch where he missed due to some personal issues. So a lot going on here, but if he looks good and there are no arm troubles, yeah, I think we can buy into Yu Darvish still being effective. Last year, the time he did pitch, the ratios were still pretty good. A 3.31 ERA, a 1.07 whip. The strikeouts are going to be the biggest difference. He's going to go from formerly being an elite strikeout artist to now just a solid, but I don't think disappointing strikeout pitcher. He's not going to be well below league average. He's not a soft tosser or anything like that at this point. So Darvish, I think, will still be fine. And of course, going to get you some wins being on the Padres. So, yeah, absolutely worth an ad. And the nice thing, if you do happen to have an IL spot open right now, is you can just put him in there until he does get activated. And it's always exciting when we get to talk about some young pitchers too, and actually seeing some rookie pitchers succeed. We always have to be patient and understanding. And when they have those blow up starts, when they kill your ratios, it happens, right? It happens even to the best of pitchers. But let's start with a guy who's so far so good, Logan Henderson of the Brewers. I am pretty much bought into him because I talked about him before he debuted for Milwaukee several weeks ago. He was looking dominant at AAA. His first start was great, and then he got sent down. All right, fine. It was a spot start. That's a normal thing. Called back up with Jose Quintana on the IL, so he does have a chance to stick, at least for the short term. And why not? His second start was just as good. Now, the good thing is we saw the strikeout stuff, 7 Ks in only 5 innings, and he didn't give up hardly anything to the offense. But the bad thing is he only went 5 innings, and they pulled him after just 72 pitches. Yes, they're being cautious, and they're being smart, and they definitely should be, because Henderson's up because Milwaukee has had so many injuries with their rotation. So, okay, I get it. It's not great for us in fantasy, but it's good in real life, and it's good for Henderson. So, that said, we know this will limit some of his potential upside. Quality starts might be hard to come by, other than once in a while if they let Henderson go 6 or 7. You know what? Wins are a little bit more likely if you're in a traditional roto league. And if you're looking long term, there are no guarantees here, really. Once they get Quintana back, if Brandon Woodruff ever comes back, I mean, sure, Henderson might get sent back down again or just stick around in long relief, which would be annoying, but it's very possible. But for now, I think he's promised at least one start, which will come against Baltimore next week. I got him in a few leagues. I'm firing up for that start. So if you want to at least add him, maybe as a short term streamer and then take it from there, that's fine. Now, Will Warren of the Yankees, he's been in the rotation and his spot is pretty assured with all their injuries. But he just hasn't been worth adding yet. I mean, a couple of flashes here and there of decent starts, but man, he's also had some rough patches. Is he putting it all together now? It definitely looks like it. I mean, he might be worth adding just for the strikeout numbers alone. Over his last 3 starts, 8 Ks, 7 Ks, 9 Ks, and finally, actually got a quality start. That's been the issue with Warren. I mean, even when he has been mostly effective, it hasn't gone over 5 innings at all until that one start. But if he's going to not only induce that many strikeouts, but also limit damage as he's been able to do over his last few starts, yeah, we might start to see him actually last longer in games, and always great chance for a win when you're a Yankee. I think the timing is pretty good here. Yankees' upcoming series against the Mets, he gets his turn skipped there, which is nice. He'll avoid them. He does get the Rangers. I mean, I guess if we're buying into the Rangers offense coming back, then maybe it's not a great spot, but still, it shouldn't scare you away from him. So let's try Warren out and hope that he continues to roll. Now, by contrast, we got a Red Sox pitcher who is very different, and that is kind of a surprising rookie here, Hunter Dobbins. Dobbins does not have the K rate of Warren or really even a league average pitcher, but he also does not walk batters. So the low walk rate, the low K rate, he's inducing soft contact. It's pretty much working. Hasn't been perfect, but he's been, let's say, far better than the guy he's replacing in Tanner Houck. Now, Houck is also on the IL, which is kind of a blessing in disguise. Well, it's not really a disguise, is it? It's just a blessing that they don't have to throw Houck out there every 5 games because he's been horrible this year, and Dobbins has been solid. Dobbins has some of those attributes I look for in pitchers that I can rely on in fantasy. He's got a 5-pitch mix, a lot of different ways to attack hitters, and he does not walk batters. There will be some ups and downs, just how it is with all young pitchers. But right now, Dobbins has a pretty decent floor, I'd say. When he does have a bad start for him, it's not as bad as a guy like Houck. And before I get to relievers, one more starter here. I couldn't really be sure if I had already talked about Andrew Abbott, and I know he was one of my favorite 2-start streamers this past week, and I know we've talked about him, but going back, and I can't say that there was a time where I said, hey, you just need to go pick this guy up. I mean, maybe it's too late in some competitive leagues. I understand that, but there's no reason he should be available really in any league at this point. But he is about half of all fantasy leagues. He remains unowned. partly because, well, he's only got 2 wins, only 2 quality starts, being in Cincinnati. Abbott has been far from a sure thing over the last couple of years. I mean, he wasn't even in the rotation to start this season. He's had a lot of control issues. And look, the walk rate is still not great, but it's far better this year. And you almost don't care because he's got right now, what, a 1.07 whip and a 2.10 ERA. Those are great, but 31.7% strikeout rate. I mean, it stands to reason that it's been several starts now. This is clearly not a small sample fluky thing, but also he has absolutely earned it. His XBA is in the 99th percentile. When a guy is pitching this well, you've just got to not look at the past, right? Don't question the situation. You just got to pick him up and trust him and roll with it until it stops. And while part of me actually just wants to stop there and say, we're done, I do feel compelled to at least give you some closer options. There's so many bullpens that I just want to avoid until the situation clears up, or just avoid altogether because maybe the situation never gets clear. But we could have a change in the guard in Toronto because Jeff Hoffman has been blowing it lately, and that means the veteran Yimi Garcia could be next up. He just got a save in Hoffman's place after another blown save by Hoffman, and his ratios are now pretty nightmarish. Garcia's numbers don't really stand out here. I mean, a 3.71 ERA, a 1.12 whip, but his numbers are definitely inflated by one nightmarish outing. Actually, there were two. There's a 2 game span, the very beginning of May here, not long ago, where he gave up 7 runs in a total of 1 inning, but every other outing that he's had, given up nothing. And this is just the way of the reliever. All it takes is 1 or 2 bad appearances to make everything fall apart. So while Yimi Garcia is no sure thing, he's looking like a better option than Hoffman these days. And if he continues to be the late inning option for Toronto, he's the one you want in fantasy. And then I'll just say, while I'm not personally seeking out Sean Armstrong or anybody in that Rangers bullpen, if you are desperate, then yes, technically, I think as of right now, unless it's changed in the last few minutes, I guess Sean Armstrong is the closer. All right, now you know who the best players to go and add are. Get busy, get on the waiver wire, get ahead of the competition. That's what we're all about. Making those moves before your league mates do. Keep it locked here for all the latest advice.